Okay guys, so in this video we are going to start by fixing the aesthetic on that plus button. So such a little detail, but I decided what I wanted to fix on it. So let's go to the browser here. We're going to go to the new post view and just go ahead and fix that really quick because it's been really irking me. So we have the plus.circle. I decided instead we're going to use plus.circle.fill. Okay, so plus.circle.fill. Foreground color of white, and we're going to give it our shadow of 3. Okay, we'll check on the aesthetics of that a little later. Let's go ahead and move on to creating this half modal. So if you remember, in some previous tutorials we talked about what a sheet is, and a sheet is what you can actually probably find an image on the internet. So sheet SwiftUI. Okay, and a sheet is like this. Okay, or I should say a sheet actually goes all the way to the top of the screen like that. Okay, and then this is what an action sheet is. Okay, but what we don't have anywhere is kind of like a halfway up the screen sheet like this. So what I did is I went ahead and I created this, and I actually have a whole tutorial just about how to create this sheet. But I will go over that really quickly here. I'm not going to go into a lot of the details of what every single piece means, but I'm going to go ahead and create it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to this reusable views folder. Okay, and I'm going to just click on random one. I'm going to say right click, new file, new Swift file or SwiftUI file, SwiftUI view. I'm going to call this half modal view. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste pieces, and then you can pause and just copy them over, and I'll do a very brief talking about them. Okay, so the gesture state obviously is for us to be able to manage the gesture that we'll be using to be able to drag this thing up and down. Okay, so that right there, I'll tell you what everything is for, not necessarily what everything does. Okay, now we have is shown, whether or not it's shown. That determines whether or not this the modal is shown itself, because the modal is never actually hidden, but rather instead the modal is its height is changed in the offset. That's what changes, and we change that based off of its height using ternary operators. Okay, now the next one I have is I want to copy two functions into this. First function is fraction_progress. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put it inside of helper funcs. Okay, I want everyone to be able to use this. So I pasted it in here, and you can read through it. So the point of this function right here, if you can read into nitty-gritty and really understand it, but I'll tell you what it is right now. It's if I were to try to do anything, okay, and that had a numerical value, and let's pretend I was dragging something from 0 pixels to 100 pixels, and I was only 64 pixels deep into that. So I am 64% done, or as a decimal, I am 0.64 done on a range of 0 to 1. So what this does is it lets me put in the lower limit of whatever I'm trying to do, the upper limit of where I could be, and where I am now. And what it does is it spits out the decimal form of where I am in this process. So in the given situation, let's pretend I was trying to drag something from 0, and I was trying to drag it down 400 pixels, like hiding, like for instance, if I was trying to hide a halfway modal, I want to drag it from 0 to 400. Then it'll track how far I am into this. And I can use that, for instance, to control how black this back sheet is. So if I wanted to, at most it's going to be 50% black. I could say, well, when I'm all the way up here, it's perfectly as dark as it needs to be. And by the time I get all the way down here, it needs to be clear again. So it lets me do smooth transitions, okay? So that's that. The next one I need to do is I need to grab this enum, this DragState, okay? Save it. And that one is going to be, actually we'll put that in the same area, so DragState right there. And that lets us manage whether or not this, this whole thing is dragging. And we can do other visual changes based on whether or not we are currently in the middle of a drag. Okay, I'm going to get rid of the half modal preview. We don't need that anymore. Okay, now let's go and look at, make sure this stays there. Okay, the next thing is we want to set up a function called onDragEnded, and that determines what we do at the end of a drag. So when we finally release, it determines whether is it going to hide all the way or not. This modal height is we're going to put that right underneath, and that is going to be has a default value of 400, but you'll be able to change it when you initialize it. Next up, we have the actual content that we'll put inside. And there's two things we need to do here. First, we'll put content right here, and we need to change this up here to say content view. Okay, and what this allows us to do is it allows us to actually write in any content we want inside of here. So it makes this fully customizable. I can put whatever I want in here, just like I could put whatever I want into like an H stack or a V stack or something like that. So let's keep going. Now, inside of the body itself, it's roughly this long, okay? So, first thing we need to do is we need to set up a drag gesture and determine what happens at the end of it. So, I'll copy that, put it inside right here. Okay, so we're saying drag, new variable drag is equal to drag gesture, and it'll be updating the drag state accordingly. And when it ends, when you end the drag gesture, it'll run the onDragEnded function. Next, we need to return a group. Okay, and inside that group we will put a Z stack, okay, because these stacks are a really clean way of making sure you have really customizable views. Alright, and the Z stack has two parts, okay? It has a dark background like this, and then it'll, on top of it, it'll have the actual modal. So, first the background. I'm going to copy all that, I'm going to put it right in here. You can pause and write it out yourself. So, inside that Z stack, we have a spacer that goes all across the entire screen. Its width is the width of the screen. Its height is the height of the screen. And whether or not the background is 0.5 is based off of this ternary operator that's using isShown as the true false. So if it is shown, the color will be black at a max darkness of 0.5 opacity, and it'll change accordingly based off of there's a multiplier here based off of FractionProgress. So it's checking how far I've dragged up and down and multiplying my progress against the maximum opacity to determine how dark that background is. We use animation here to make sure that obviously this whole process is animated, and then we add a tap gesture so that way when we tap on this dark background here, if we tapped right there, this would go away. Alright, now we got the foreground. Okay. Foreground, copy. Okay. That there. Background, okay. And then, so this foreground is a V stack, and there's a spacer up top. That's what allows that's this area right here where nothing is. Okay, and note that you can actually click through any clear spacers, but from what I can tell so far, you cannot click through any colored spacers. So, what that means is that I can click through this clear spacer above the modal in the Z stack, and it'll end up clicking on this background spacer. It'll end up clicking on this spacer here, this the darker one, which allows it to dismiss. So there's a spacer, underneath it there is a Z stack, okay, and this Z stack contains this white background with a width of the screen right here to here, and a height of height of the modal height, which in our case is the default value of 400. This looks like about 600, and this is a random image from Google. There's a corner radius of 10, which lets us get this up there, and there's a shadow of 5. So that kind of gives us that shadow over that background, and then directly on top of that white modal right there, what you'll find is the actual content that you are putting in, the same way you put content in a V stack or a Z stack. And there's two sets of paddings here, and there's a frame width and height. And what this is doing is it's saying there's the content has this max width and this max height. But one important thing is that because we use this edges ignore, well, actually we haven't put it in yet, but we'll put it right here. So dot edges ignore insets, and we'll write dot all. And so what that does is it lets us fill into these bevels here, but that also means that our content can end up going into here as well. You don't want content that low. You probably want it to start about right here. So I went ahead and included that by putting a padding of 0 as well as a padding of 65 at the bottom. So sorry, not 0 here. This is a standard default padding of like 10 or 20 or whatever the default is. It's all around, but then right here I put a padding, an extra padding of 65 on the bottom. And we clip it so that the content does not fall off the bottom here or off the right and the left. Okay, so now that we have that, we're almost done. We have one more piece we need to add. So we need to take all this stuff, copy it. actually, oh, we already put that in there. Okay, so let's just talk about it really quick. So the way this hides, when I click here, sorry, I should have done that. When I click up here, or when I drag this down, what we're actually modifying is the offset of this. So right now it has an offset of 0. But if I tell it offset is 50, it goes 50 down, 50 pixels down. 100, it goes 100 down, etc. So what we're using is we're checking when you click here and drag down, it's checking how far you've dragged and using that as the offset. Okay, so you can really sit there and read through this offset, through this entire offset function. I'm not going to sit here and explain it in detail because I do have a whole video just about how to create this one half modal. And I'll put a link for that video in the description if you want more information. But if you are okay with this, then you can actually just copy. I'm going to scroll very slowly. You can pause and make sure everything you have looks exactly the same. Okay? So, once you have that all taken care of, you're going to save it. Okay? Note we are in the half modal view right now. I'm going to close the old one, and make sure to check the links in the description if you want some more detailed information on how we created that, okay? So, the reason we did that is now we're going to set up where all this is try to create an interface where we can create new recipes, okay? So I'm going to save it, I'm going to run it. And while that is building, let's go ahead and look at this list again, all right? Half modal setup. You can see the next thing we have up is Firebase Firestore. So we are going to have image storage included here, but in order to get to that, we need to make sure we can actually upload a whole recipe, okay? So let's look at this page right here. Let's look at the simulator. Booting up. Just takes a second. There we go. Here we are. We're in, okay? And everything looks exactly as we left it. We fixed that. I think that looks a lot nicer, okay? Now what we'll do is we'll put one of those here and here as well, okay? Or yeah, I like that. Put one and one. So let's go to the new post. Let's see. Tabs, new post view. Okay. And inside here, let's go to this VStack with ingredients, okay? So we have this one and this one. So in addition to above that VStack, we'll put a ZStack, okay? We'll embody each of those into a ZStack. ZStack. Okay. And re-indent everything so it looks easy. It's easier to look at. Okay, and we'll close up these VStacks. We don't really need to look at them in that depth. And we just want to put another VStack there. Okay, and that VStack, we're going to put an HStack in it. And at the bottom underneath the HStack, we'll put a spacer. And then in the HStack, we will put, this one is for ingredients. So first we'll put an image. We're going to put the same, let's find this. Actually, we can just put a regular plus dot circle. So we'll put an image, system name, image, so plus dot circle. Okay, and spacer on the other side, and save it, and let's see what it looks like. Actually, before we spend some time running that already, let's figure out what this error is here. There we go. Okay, before we run it, let's do the same exact thing we just did right there. Okay. And let's go to the other one right here. And let's put the same exact piece of code underneath this. So this one right here was the ingredients. Yep. Ingredients. And this one right here was steps. Okay. And I put it, but the only difference I'm going to do is I'm going to put this for steps. I'm going to put this on top with a plus star circle. Okay. And we'll give padding probably for this image. Okay, for both of them, and we'll run it. Let's see what it looks like. So now we should have a little plus button on each of those as well. There we go. Got our plus buttons right there. And they are above this scroll, okay? But when I say above, I mean in the Z dimension. So that is that. And then the next thing we can do is we need to turn this into a button. So I'm going to create a button. I don't know why it does that actually. If you do know why, for instance, I can't see that, shoot me a message below. We can make sure not to have that issue again. So let's find a button in here. Let's find an easy one to reuse. There we go. Copy that and bring it back over. So that H stack isn't just going to have an image, it's going to have a button instead. So I'm going to put that inside there. And then that one we'll take out. We'll do that for now. And I'll do the same thing over here. Get rid of that. Place that. Okay. And I'm going to create a new variable here at state var half modal shown can be equal to false. And then on top of this entire view, I'm going to minimize everything here, okay? And I'm going to put a Z stack to embody everything. Okay? So now your new post view should all be embodied into a Z stack. Okay, like that. And there's the V stack with that sheet, but underneath or on top of that V stack, we're going to have a half modal view. Okay, and half modal view, whether or not it's shown, is going to be based off of half modal shown. Is shown is half modal shown. Okay, and get rid of all that. And it's content. For now, we'll just put a text. This is a half modal. Okay, and the goal here, the reason we put that now, is because if we go into our VStack, right over here under where we have this plus circle from earlier, from a second ago even, where we're going to put in there, actually, where is this one? Yeah, so ingredient, each one of these has the same thing. Right there. So that VStack, that's a button, right? And we're going to say half modal shown toggle. And we're going to use that as an interface to add, copy that, put it down here as well, in the action. So we needed to put in the action of both of these buttons. And every time you click on this button, it'll open up a half modal, and in the half modal, we can enter a new ingredient, or we can enter a new step. And then we're going to end up saving all those steps and saving all these images, and we'll have a save recipe. And that recipe will get saved into Firestore, okay? So save. And so the next thing we'll do is we will save it, we'll run it. Now what should happen is we should at least, forget about toggle, we should even just make it say equals true. It shouldn't make a difference, but I'm going to change it. It shouldn't make a difference at this exact given moment in time. But I'm going to make it true for now. So we don't ever have to worry about if it will be different later. So I'll click over here, and I click it. There it is. This is a half modal. And I can even do this. Alright. So there we are. That covers that so far. Equals true. Okay, and we might as well design what we want inside of there. So let's click one of these. Okay. And what we want to put in there is probably just, let's think, we're going to probably put a VStack. We'll probably put a text that says, well, actually what we're going to do here is we are going to have two items. A text that'll say, right now we'll make it say title, and we'll put a text field. Okay. And we don't need that, we just want actually text field. Let's look at all the initializers we have. We probably want one with a placeholder. Let's see. Plus, same principle. We can't do that again. So, text field. I know we've used these before, so we'll use that. I'm gonna copy all that over. I'm gonna bring it over, and I end up using only a small fragment of that. So, text field. This one will say placeholder, and we actually won't need pretty much any of this. Alright, and what we're going to have this say, this is going to be based on, this is going to be bound to a new variable called, let's just say, half modal text field. Okay. And since that doesn't exist, we'll go up top, we'll create it. So at state var is going to be equal to math. Let's see. Use that. Interesting. I've personally never seen there we go. That's why we had an extra $sign up there. So let's, there we go. Get rid of one of these. Everything should work like a charm. And let's go ahead and just make two other variables here because we're going to need them. So this one is going to say at state var, and we're going to say text field title half modal title going to be equal to nothing, and we're going to have half modal placeholder. Field val, and let's do that. Okay, so now we go down here. So it would be text. This would be val. This one will say self dot half modal text field placeholder, and this one will say self dot half modal title. And actually, we don't need to. We don't need these there. We just need that. And when I click on the ingredients one or the step one, I'll say the title will say self.title will be equal to add a step, and the other one will be add an ingredient. And then we'll make the placeholder say new ingredients. And this one will say, I should say enter new step. Enter new ingredient. Okay. Save it, run it, and let's look at that now. Obviously, it's not going to be everything we'd hoped for because we didn't work on any aesthetics at all yet on that half modal, but we're getting pretty close now. So look here, add an ingredient, add a step. So we are doing pretty well, all right? The next thing I'm going to want to do realistically is, if you notice, this is going off the screen, this is going off the screen, it's all down here, right? Everything needs to be bumped up to about right here. That's the first thing we need to do. And the second thing that we're going to need to do, well, it's all going to be kind of tied together, but this is also, if this is centered, that means that we have this much space down here. So this entire page is a little too far down, so we need to bring it up. And we'll take care of that in the next video, okay?